Good evening and welcome to Harnessing Abilities, Rounding Up Resources. My name is Tim Markle. I'm director of the Southern Regional Center for Children and Youth with Special Health Care Needs. We're out of the Wasteman Center. We cover 14 counties in southern and southwest Wisconsin. And what's important tonight is Southwest Wisconsin. So that's where we're going to be focusing on tonight. I'm excited that my son Hunter is here with me tonight. Some of you have met him before. And the power behind what is happening tonight. Rose Cutting is with us from Aiming for Acceptance in CESA 3. Hi, Rose.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having us again tonight. Super excited for this topic. Can't wait for everybody to learn how everybody can work that wants to be able to. So I'm going to just leave it at that and we'll get it going from there. How's that sound?
Sounds great. Thank you so much. I enjoy doing this series and I can't wait I think I get to go down to Petamore in March. And I'm going to bring this guy with me. Yay!
Yes, you do. Yes,
Awesome.
you do. The end of March, we're going to have business and education get together, and we are going to host them along with keynote speaker Matt Gawalki and talk about how business and education can start the process of employment while the student is still in the K-12 system.
Oh, fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. And tonight we're going to hear from my friend Dale Verstegen, and we are going to be talking about who should be on your employment team. The way that I talked to Dale has been over and talked to Hunter, and my whole thought when I asked Dale was that when you round up the usual suspects in search for employment, you get the usual results. We want to work with our partners, but what could happen when you form an employment team that's beyond the usual suspects? So Dale, I'm excited that you're here tonight and looking forward to you sharing your PowerPoint and helping us learn a little bit more.
Tim, there's a lot of feedback from everybody. Maybe you should mute it or something, because there's a lot of feedback.
Yeah, I don't know who might have something on in the background.
Let's see.
Yeah.
If I hit,
Tracy wants to say hi, Dale.
Hi, Dale.
good to see you.
Good to
How you
see
doing?
you.
All right. Is the feedback still there?
It is not.
No. Okay. Good.
All
All
right.
right. So I should go ahead, get
Feel
started.
free, share your screen and let's get rolling.
All right, will do. Okay, and if there is any problems with the sound, please let me know or anything else. And small group, and I really much prefer to create kind of a discussion as I do this. So please just jump right in. Don't be afraid to interrupt me. Rather do that than just keep talking at you. However, I do have a number of slides that I was planning to go through. I'm going to go through them pretty quick with the idea that I have shared these PowerPoints, and there's going to be like 2 resources that I'm also going to share. And all of that I have sent to Tim and Rose. And, feel free to access them that way. And I thought that way I'll go through them quickly. You can always reference them in the future. And it would hopefully save us a little bit more time to talk at the end.
I love that, Dale. And I will, after I get the recording set tomorrow, I will send it to everybody who is registered for tonight's session. And then we'll also post it on the Harnessing Abilities website.
Excellent.
Thank
Good,
you so
good.
much.
Yeah, happy to share those things. And before I get started on the slides, I also just want to state how I'm excited about this opportunity to talk to you about this, because I mostly spend my time talking to people in the profession. So I work with different state agencies, different federal agencies, along with local provider organizations that deliver services to specific individuals with disabilities or through the school systems. And the professionals that I have a chance to work with, I have a very high admiration for what it is they do. However, I also feel that in a lot of ways, The state agencies, the local provider organizations can really only do just so much. And so I really want to really kind of make the case for for the fact that individuals and the families of individuals really can, in a lot of cases, should be more in the driver's seat. And so I'm going to try to shape my remarks in that way. Putting it another way, it's not the best to turn over the keys to government and provider organizations to plan everything out and implement the services on behalf of people with disabilities. It's much better when those organizations are seen as resources that can be tapped into based on what it is an individual or the family of the individual or guardians would like to see happen on their behalf. So that's going to be kind of the spirit of what it is I'm going to try to do. And how do we ensure that people with disabilities become active contributing members in our communities? I mean, we know they can, we know they should be, and yet too many people with disabilities continue to be isolated and impoverished. So what is it? What's kind of holding back? Why do we have such a high poverty rate amongst people with disabilities? And why aren't more people truly integrated into their communities? Well, here are the types of organizations that tend to work with people with disabilities. You put them into these different categories or boxes: education, employment, day services, residential, and all of these are programs with the best intentions and with the amount of funding that can be acquired on their behalf. These programs do their best to deliver these services, but they're very disjointed. They're very compartmentalized. Those different programs are built around the funding. And so they determine that there's a need, funding is generated for that need, and it comes down to the people with disabilities in the form of a program. So a lot of times what happens is service plans are based on openings, slots. And there's a lot of reasons for all of this. Some of it being that we originally had more of a medical model in terms of the services that were originally designed for people with disabilities. And in a lot of cases, the programs are based on attendance, not necessarily specific outcomes or goals. And the last point on that is, once you're in a program, people with disabilities tend to stay in those programs. And so, where is this whole possibility and notion of independence? And how can more and more people with disabilities achieve independence rather than dependence on some of these programs? So lots to talk about there, but the most important part is people with disabilities and the families that also care about these folks with disabilities have to physically and figuratively go in and out of each of these boxes. And each one of them has their own rules, they have their own regulations, and it's very confounding for almost anybody that has to try to navigate this system. But ultimately, what are we trying to achieve? A more meaningful life for the people that we support. And there isn't anybody in the system or anybody who cares about a person with a disability that would disagree with that. That's really what we're really trying to achieve. And at the top of that list is employment, because it gives us not only those financial resources, but it contributes to a person's self-worth, their identity as a person with a disability. You only have to go to a social event or a party to know one of the first questions that gets asked is, what do you do? And from that derives this notion of self-worth. But there's also all other and very important aspects about a meaningful life: engagement in the community, relationships, that notion of having a happy home, a place to go back to, our own personal sanctuary, our health, freedom and independence, playing that valued role in ultimately having a purpose. Now, if you look at that list and you ask yourself, what's the role of government? What's the role of these programs? Well, on certain levels, you could say that they play a part in achieving a lot of these things. But really, it isn't the purview or the ability of these government programs to really achieve these things in and of themselves. This requires engagement of the individuals, of the families, and it requires people who care about this person to really kind of understand what the limitations are of these particular programs and what it is they're trying to achieve in order to really achieve this greater purpose, which is a meaningful life. And so really what I'm talking about is how we all should look at and think about the fact that these services and supports need to be person-centered, person-driven, not based on a program, not based on a slot. They need to be about the individual. And what is it that we want, and what is it that they want to learn and do? What do they need to learn to be successful? What are the goals and the dreams of these individuals? And what is the person's home? Where is their base? Where are they considered to be from? And that has a lot to do with the community and the neighborhoods in which they live. And so if you look at that list of questions, how many of those are best to be answered by the individual themselves and or the families that supports them? And the answer is they are the best individuals to be able to answer these questions. But what I do find is in a lot of cases, it's the organizations, it's the case managers, it's the counselors that really take a pivotal role in developing the answers to a lot of these questions. You know, they help to achieve plans on behalf of the individuals. And so what I guess this slide is really trying to say is who's driving the bus. And even though state organizations and local providers and the professionals that do this work would like to say, no, we want to be more person-centered, we want to be person-driven, they're also constrained by large caseloads and limited resources and funds. So if the family and the individual in particular can have their own sense of a dream and goals and can be clear about what it is they want to learn and what it is and what success looks like for them, then we can tap into these resources, and those same government and local provider organizations or educational institutions can then better understand and support the person to achieve the goals and the plans that are derived by them. And so that's really what essentially calling for this notion of more individualized services versus programs. Services that are integrated into that person's network of support, not trying to do everything for somebody, but being real clear as to what they can do to complement, to supplement what the person might need around this concept of a network of support for that particular individuals. Schedules should be designed based on real life. A lot of our programs is I can help you as long as it's between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And if it's outside of that, my program doesn't play a role. But our lives go on. And a lot of what we have in terms of what it is we want to learn, where it is we want to go, the goals that we have aren't confined to those service hours that in fact they're available to help. So ultimately, we need those ideas that supports wrap around the individual rather than the individual has to fit into a program. And so the individualize, again, not necessarily meaning one-on-one, but just the fact that it's about the individual, and the activities that are being done are based on what that person is interested in versus something that might be predetermined that says, this is what's available, and are you in or are you out? So there's a long way for us to go in a lot of these areas when it comes to redeveloping services, but we're well on our way. We're seeing a lot of changes in terms of Medicaid regulations and what they're calling the CMS final ruling, where everybody is trying to be more community-based and individualized. So I think everybody gets it. It's just going to be difficult because it's the system and the funds and these large organizations, it's a big ship to turn. So what can help make that happen quicker? And what could help make that happen for on an individual and on a family by family basis? Well, we think it's where that family has the tools and the resources to really kind of put their own plans together, and then reach out to different organizations and people who can help based on, this is my plan and this is what I need help with. So one of the resources that I'm suggesting that you can tap into is Charting the Life course through the University of Maryland, Kansas City. And if you don't know much about that, I strongly encourage you to go to their website and really check that out, because what they put together through Charting the Life course is some planning methods that can be done by individuals and families. And that's who it's targeted for. So look at the stages of a person's life and the different domains that a person's life. And, it isn't so clear cut, where we live and where we work and where we socialize and where we recreate with our programs. Those all tend to be very individualized and siloed. But that isn't the case for most of us. If you do this sort of life skills, Charting the Life course planning, you see that these things all blend together. We may live close to where we might work. We may socialize with people who we work with. We may get a job based on a family or a friend who works somewhere and tells us about an opportunity. So when you look at those different domains and stages, there's a lot of opportunity to kind of plan out what is the priorities and the goals for an individual, where it's looking at their whole life and not just a certain aspect of a person's life. So what are the strengths of this particular Charting the Life course? It's based on a person's unique abilities and interests, or in this case, personal strengths. It really pays attention to the relationships that a person has in their communities, the community resources that are and are not available to those particular people, and eligibilities based on resources and technology. And then lastly, it really looks at how to create those contact connections and partnerships that really can help to foster those goals and achieve a more meaningful life. So and let me try to explain it in another way in terms of what the Charting the Life course does. So if you look at the left, you see you have the person that's in that blue circle. And around that person is wrapped a person's family, or in some cases, their guardians in circles of support. And then a little bit further out from that is the community in which they live. And if you look at what a traditional disability service would look like, they really kind of put themselves between the person and their family and the community. And they try to be this interface between who the person is and what's going to go on in terms of the family and the community. And what we think, and what the Charting the Life course really emphasizes, is a more integrated set of services and supports, where if you look at those, they look like kind of butterflies or symbols that are colorful there. They're inserted where the support is needed, but they don't encompass the whole person. They don't necessarily take charge of what the person is and is not getting. It's more driven by the individual And each one of those things represents a service that was important to this person to be successful when it comes to integrating with both their family and the communities in which they live. So that's just another kind of visual description of the kind of planning that could be done by an individual and their family, irrespective of the services that are being provided to that particular person, whether it's at the school education level or at the adult stage of a person's life. But ultimately, particularly when it comes to employment, there needs to be a path. There needs to be a first, second, third step. And so what we think is important to appreciate is that the very first step is high expectations. You know, really giving yourself, or if it's a family member, giving that family member the benefit of the doubt and really saying, what can you aspire to? And what might you expect if you reach for the sky, if you reach for the moon? What might that look like? Without having to limit ourselves, just like we wouldn't want anybody to limit their dreams or their aspirations. And so we think at the heart of the matter is high expectations. And unfortunately, there are a lot of families out there of people with disabilities who have been told throughout that person's life about the disabilities, the barriers, the challenges. If you look at a person's file, it has a lot of information in there about the disability. And really what we think is more relevant and important is, what do they want? What can they do? And how can we help them do it? And so sometimes the families have unnecessarily low expectations of their family members. And so we really have to kind of, with love and understanding, we have to help those families really better appreciate the potential of their family members, irrespective of the fact that they have a disability. And then from there, you build skills and you explore. We're not saying that you're going to come out of the box knowing what you want to do. None of us know what we want to do when we start out, but we start to look into it. We build, we explore, and we start to figure out what we're good at and where it is that we can make some contributions. And then ultimately, we have to, especially when they're young, we have to help them set a vision for themselves, help them have that same sense of high expectation, and really help them say, you know, the world's your oyster. What is your vision? And what's important is that vision is different for each and every person. But how can it be if they really don't know what their possibilities are? So helping them explore those possibilities becomes really important. So then, once they have this notion of a vision, well, how can we support it? And so one of the ways, especially when it comes to a path to employment, is what are the supports that are necessary? And I'll make the case that that's going to be different for each and every person. Some are going to need more intensive supports to really kind of do what we would call discovery and assessment. And some can kind of figure it out themselves, or between the family and friends and the person themselves, they can figure it out for themselves in terms of what career goals they might want to have, what it is that they are good at, where it is that they could make a meaningful contribution. And then you got to kind of test these opportunities. You got to test these different avenues and potential that you have when it comes to employment. And so that's where meaningful work experiences come in. You don't want to throw somebody into the deep end of the pool. You want to throw them into the shallow end of the pool where they can stand up, they can walk around, and a work experience is a lot safer than a paid job. Because once they give you a check each week, then you've got a certain expectations that are going to be put upon you to be successful in that job. But how do you know if that's what you really even want to do? How do you know if that's the right work environment for you? So lots of opportunities to just work and figure it out in less intensive, less risky types of environments. And these work experiences can be achieved through some of the service providers that are available, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can simply be hey, I want to come over and try to do some work. I want to try this out. I want to see if I'm good at it. And so informally within your communities, especially if you're going into a place that might be where one of your family members or good friends or neighbors are, where you're just saying, I want to learn more about what it means to do this kind of work. It's very possible to have those very short, time-limited kinds of work experiences to figure out what you like, what you don't like, what you're good at, what you're not good at. And so that's really an important step for many people in order to achieve the ultimate goal, which is a job in the community, with or without supports. One caution in that is you can't have people with disabilities going in and working for employers over an extended period of time without getting paid. That's against the Department of Labor laws, because that's where an employer might be taking advantage of somebody because they're not paying them. But what is really a good opportunity for both parties is when they have those very time-limited, short duration types of work experiences, that the employer opens up their doors and says, yeah, you can come in here and you could stock a shelf, take some product out of the boxes and put it up on the shelf, or you could get on a computer and enter this information in for me just to see if you're good at that or if you like it. And that is something that can be acceptable, as long, again, is that it isn't displacing other workers or taking advantage of somebody who isn't getting paid. So if you're going to do that sort of thing, if you're going to have that sense of a path, if a person's going to just try to figure out by having different work experiences or talking to different people and learning more about themselves and learning more about themselves in relation to the world of work, you have to be able to capture that information. Because if you have these work experiences, well, what did you learn from it? What did you like? What didn't you like? Well, who are you? What are you good at? All those are wonderful questions, but if you're not documenting the answers to those questions, it's really hard to make progress. So one of the things that we like is this positive personal profile. And one of the reasons we like it is that it's short, it's a page, it's maximum 2 pages of information. All of the categories on here are positive. We're not asking a bunch of disability-related questions, yet we don't ignore the fact that a person has a disability, but we're putting them into the context of what kind of support system might they need? What sort of challenges is the person going to face? What sort of solutions and accommodations are necessary? And then what we also like about the positive person profile is at the bottom, it gives you an opportunity to kind of suggest some goals, some career goals and next steps. So what we think is the positive personal profile is a sort of document that you could just build upon over time. And what's also really important is that you're getting information from a broad array of different people. Putting it another way, and Rose, if you don't mind, I'm going to just put you on the spot. I'm going to say, what makes you really good at your job? What would you say to that?
I would say it's the people I work with.
Okay. What else would you say?
You are putting me on the spot, Dale.
Yeah.
I would say it's a combination of some strengths that I have and opportunities through the years to have different experiences to draw upon.
Okay. Now, if I was going to try to help you get a job, I would take those answers and I would just keep asking you more questions to try to get a little bit more specific. But even if I drilled you for like a half hour about this, about yourself and what you're good at, I'm going to make the case that I'm going to only get a certain amount of limited information. Why? And I think most of you could see it. Rose is not a person who likes to brag about herself. She doesn't have this long list of things that make Rose the greatest worker in the world. And yet I would argue that there are a lot of people who work with Rose, including coworkers, but even could be family of Rose, who also know her and could give me probably, I'm gonna just go out on a limb here and say definitely give me better information than I'm going to be able to get from Rose herself. And if you look at it that way, then what you really start to appreciate is why are we spending a lot of time asking people with disabilities all these questions that sometimes they don't even have the ability or the inclination to want to answer, especially if they don't have much of a work history. So where should we get that information? We need to get it from all the other people who know them and may have experience being with them, maybe at church, maybe on a sports team, maybe in the classroom. Wherever the person goes, whatever it is they do, they're most likely doing it with other people. And who are those other people? And what do they know about the individual? So it's like a diamond. We have all these facets to ourselves. And we've got to tap into all the people that see that person differently, but most importantly, sees them as in a positive way. And there is where you're going to get a lot of good information. So if this is like one page, look how easy it is to be filled out. So think about who are the 5 people who might know you the best. And if you gave each one of those 5 people this blank sheet and you said, just take a few minutes and try to fill this out on my behalf. Not only could they add a bunch of really good information onto this, but you can then put those 5 sheets together onto one. It still would only be about less than a couple pages worth of information. But here you'd have all this great information about them all combined in such a way that you're going to get a much better, well-rounded picture of who this person is and where they might be able to make a contribution and might start to give us better ideas of the kinds of jobs or kind of work environments that are going to help this person shine and be a good fit. And so this positive personal profile is one of the 2 resources that I'm sending out to you all and encourage you to use this to gather information into what we call discovery and assessment. Discovery meaning discovering the world of work and what's all out there. And then once they have an idea of different things that they'd like to try, then you assess where would they be able to make the best contributions to those different types of jobs and career goals. So that's a positive personal profile. Then ultimately, what do people want to learn? So that positive personal profile just gives you a snapshot of what we know right now. But it begs the question, what is it that they want to be able to do in the future that they can't? What is it that they don't know that they want to learn more about? For people with disabilities, this question really helps me understand them better than any other question that I can ask them, because they may have a limited work experience. They may not really know what it is that they want to do. They might still be trying to figure out what their dreams are in terms of their life and what they would like to see their life look like. But one of the things they most likely can tell me is what they want to learn. And what they want to learn will tell you a lot about what they're interested in and possibly what they might be good at. Because you know how it is, if you start to learn something, you find out you're good at it, you want to learn more about that and you want to get better at it. You don't want to always get better at the things you're not good at, but the things you are good at, those are paths you want to go farther down. So this is a great question, and it becomes part of the goals that you can put in place for an individual so that they can start to learn these things. The other thing that I really see is that we have to help people strengthen their employability. And we think some of the best ways to do that is volunteering and achieving internships. And again, a lot of that doesn't have anything to do with them getting paid. So it opens up all kinds of possibilities for them to be willing to put themselves into situations where they could volunteer, share their labor and their personality and their skills with somebody else that they can then benefit from, but it also strengthens their own employability because they learn social skills, they learn about what it means to come on time and to take direction. And the same thing applies with internships. And this is what we mean by discovery. Discovery and assessment is what ultimately strengthens a person's employability. And really, it never ends. I think all of us are learning new things, developing new interests. And for the people that we want to support, you just have to simply get that down on paper. And if a person doesn't know what they're interested in, just help them expose to different things. Let them try different things. Put them into different places with different people and just see what kind of reaction they get, what it is that they can try. So the more in different kinds of experience a person has, the richer their world is, and ultimately it strengthens their employability. What it also does is builds their confidence so that those employability skills can then be matched to networking. And I'm going to come back to networking because that's a really important concept as well. So building confidence in the community and encouraging independence is ultimately what we like to see everybody achieve. Why? Because it leads to a more meaningful life. And in teaching that notion of social self-sufficiency, building stamina and endurance, and making sure that while they're out and they're doing all of these things, they're doing it safe. Well, a lot of families, one of their biggest concerns is safety. You know, is this person going to get hurt? Is this person going to be taken advantage of? And so part of the responsibility for that is making sure we don't put them in those kinds of situations, but it's also teaching them to be safe themselves. And we sometimes miss that. And that's another very important role for family members, is to help that person not only avoid unsafe situations, but help them navigate unsafe situations so that they can, in fact, be more independent over time. So what I want to do now is tell you a story about the person that's on the left there. That's Bill. And Bill was supported by an organization that I used to work for in San Francisco. So what you're doing is you're looking at Bill standing on a hill or mountaintop overlooking the city of San Francisco. Now, this story really makes the case for how we've been able to achieve more social self-sufficiency, stamina, endurance, and safety skills by Bill over time, just by exploring some of the things that Bill was interested in. So it all started when they were trying to help Bill be able to get around the city in a more safe, in a safe manner. So it's called mobility training or travel training. And so what they did is they took Bill out and they showed him how to cross the street, when to cross the street, how to use metro, how to use the buses. And they did this slowly and gradually over time. And they're always with him every step of the way. But as they were walking around with Bill, what they really found is he always wanted to walk a little bit more. Or if there was another area or a neighborhood that they were close to or a park, he always wanted to go explore that. He wanted to kind of walk around. And so what we introduced to Bill, besides this notion of just getting around, and was this notion of hiking. Well, it seems like you like to hike. You like to walk and you like to see different things. And he says, yes, I do. And so we started to incorporate a different activity, which was we're going to go hiking for a few hours because that was a hobby that he had an interest that he wanted to pursue. So we helped him pursue it. Well, lo and behold, some of the other people that we support heard about us taking these hikes and they wanted to come along too. So now Bill has some friends and now we're taking walks around different parts of the city. We might pick a park and go walk into that particular thing. And what ended up happening after that is they would go back and talk about, oh, I went to this park, this is what we saw, or there was these interesting people that we had a chance to talk to. And so some of the family members of Bill started to want to go with Bill after Bill was so excited about this. So we had to shift it from something that we would do during the day when Bill wasn't working as part of his social and recreational opportunities to an event that we were going to do on the weekend. And so because Bill's family was now involved in this, this wasn't something that required any professionals to be with Bill anymore. Now Bill and his family basically started a hiking club. And some of the people that also got supports would join the hiking club. And then some of other Bill's friends started to join, some of the family and friends of the other folks that were part of the hiking club. And they had a nice little group that every Saturday at a certain day or a certain time, they would all meet at a designated place and they would figure out where it is they wanted to hike, and they would work out ahead of time. And it was always somebody's within the team's responsibility to arrange the hike each week for where it is that they're going to go. So ultimately, this became something that Bill not only determined that he liked himself, but he was able to share it with other people. And that's what I mean by social self-sufficiency. Once he did something that other people were interested in, he was actually a leader in making this sort of an opportunity happen, not only for himself, but for friends, for families, and friends of families. So it became a network, became a nice opportunity, all based on what just started as a simple, I like to walk. So here is just gets across the point that as you arrange these sorts of things, as the person is doing more things with different people, it doesn't always have to be somebody who's paid to be with them. It can more and more become something where they have an interest with other people, ideally without a disability. Doesn't have to always be that way, but in certain cases where there's a common interest, then they can provide what we call natural supports. And then when natural supports are provided, less likely to need paid staff to do it. So when you do what we're talking about in terms of looking at this as individualized services, scheduling things that are of interest and where this person can make a contribution, what we find is that the services decrease over time and that the amount of things that the person does goes up, but the amount of supports that they need to do it goes down. All just based on this person achieving more independence and finding commonality with other people who aren't always there to be paid to be with them. And as you can see for Jennifer, she has a job, she has her own place, and has a boyfriend. And so this person is now starting to live the kind of life and the more independent kind of life that she wants, but she can't do it all on her own. And so that's where family and friends and yes, the supports that Jennifer needs can be provided. But it doesn't always have to be government funded, and it doesn't always have to be local providers that are making this happen for the folks based on their plans. So I want to try to give you an example of another example of kind of what we're talking about. So this is Jeff. And if you were to look at Jeff's file when he was referred to us, because Jeff did say he wanted to get a job. So that's what brought him to our organization. We would have read he has Down syndrome. He can only read and write simple words. He has a 2nd grade math. He's difficult to understand. He stutters. He has endocardial cushion deficit, which I don't know what it is, but it doesn't sound very good. And he's stubborn and he's unemployed. So that's who was referred to us. But you can see that in a lot of these cases, these files that go with an individual are not something that's going to help us figure out what a good life looks like for Jeff, or what he might even be able to, and where he might be able to make a contribution. But when we tried different things, we took him out into the community, we asked him questions, and then ultimately, when we started to complete that positive personal profile, what we learned was he loves sports. He's a fitness fanatic. He goes every Sunday to a health club with his dad. He loves musicals. He likes singing and dancing. He plays the guitar. He's gregarious. He's outgoing. He has a great sense of humor, takes pride in his Jewish heritage, loves to help others, and he's also a cancer survivor. All very different things, all very positive. Now, which of these lists would give you ideas of where to help Jeff get a job? Obviously, the list on the right, right? So we're going to come back to Jeff in a little bit, but I also wanted to give you this, because if you do a good job with discovery and assessment, you really create a document that allows this person's interests and abilities to shine. So this was done for Andy by Andy's mom. And she had this template where she decided she wanted to put all the good things about Andy so that other people could figure out if they have common interests with Andy, and they could use something like this to maybe even help Andy get a job or help promote his business, because he also was interested in photography. So she wanted something on one page, very simple, that would really kind of help us learn all the great things that we've learned from the discovery and assessment process. So what we learned is that Andy's vision is to get his own studio. My job would be taking pictures. I would get a small house. I would get married to Maggie. I also work at Publix. It's a grocery store. It is really fun. I keep my money in the bank. I want to go to college and live in a new house by myself. So I don't know quite what happened to Maggie there. And then my friends would come to visit me in my new home. And then he lists his strengths. He lists areas that he needs help, so that you get a better idea of, if you're doing something with Andy, these are some things that he might need a little assistance with. When you're doing something, he talks about his accomplishments, and I like this category. What works for me? Peer modeling and support, age-appropriate awards. He likes breaks. Money's important to him. He likes music. He likes things explained to him very specific. What doesn't work for him is he doesn't like to be babied, and removing him from his friends. So this gives you all the things that was in that positive personal profile, but in a way that anybody who wanted to get to know Andy a little bit better could do so. So just another resource that I just wanted to make you aware of, that really kind of shows the products that you can get out of doing some good discovery and assessment. Families can play an important role in all of this. One is setting that expectation around, you can do some of these things, because a lot of times people don't try things because it could even be their family who's saying, I'm not sure you can do that, or I don't think you can work out in the community. So starting with expectations, a family can help a person build on their confidence and set realistic goals and dreams. Help with the soft skills, manners, taking direction, time management, teaching real things, chores at home, being a partner with their employment service provider. These are all things that a family can do to really contribute and support their family member to be successful in a job. However, some of the reasons families don't have high expectations are very legitimate concerns. Vulnerability, safety. Could they do the job? Who will hire them? What might the benefits be? And so valid questions, these questions are normal, they should be encouraged, And particularly through a network like you have, this is where these families can get some of the answers to some of these things. And they should have doubts, but it shouldn't stop them from still trying things. So that's where we think a lot of families fall short. They're resistant to try things. But you can always try things in a very safe and slow environment without creating too much risk. And that's something families need to know about. But it's a balancing act. So is what Dale's saying that the family should just, and the person should just take over and forget about the services? No. But it needs to be a balancing act between what it is that the person does for themselves, what the family does to really help them, and then carefully uses the services that are available, but based on what the person and the family thinks is the goals and the plan for what it is they want to do. And what's really important, particularly for families, is the notion that it's a longer runway. They want their own place, valid interest. They want their own job. They want their own friends. They want love and romance in their life. All those things are very possible, but the runway is going to be longer. So the idea isn't, we're failing because they don't have a job yet. No, the question is, are they moving down this runway towards those goals, towards those dreams? And that's also very important for families to understand, and for people with disabilities themselves to understand. It may take longer, but it's all very possible. And there's a lot of people and resources along the way that can really help them ultimately get to where it is they want to go. So if you finish the discovery process, what we're suggesting is a meeting. And it's best if that meeting is developed by the individual or the individual and their family, not by the professionals. Why? Because it's those folks that know who should be at the meeting. It's anybody who cares about that and knows about who that particular person is. Well, who knows who that should be but the person in the family, right? So they should be the ones calling the meeting. It can be as big a group as you want. It can include family, friends, neighbors. It can include staff. But what's really important is whose meeting is it and who's running the meeting. And it should really be, as much as possible, done by the individual and the families. And what you want at that meeting are lots of different ideas, perspectives, and experiences in the room, ideally from the community in which you want to work. Prep the job seekers so that they're ready to talk about themselves and to facilitate this and to share information that they have about themselves, maybe even going through the positive personal profile. And where they have troubles speaking about certain things, that's where the family or the other staff that might know them can really come in. But ultimately, this should be this person's meeting. And then you want to make it fun. You want to make this positive. It's a celebration because you feel you have a lot of really good information and you're ready to act. You're ready to say, well, what are we going to do? What kind of opportunities do we want to create for this person? And not just jobs. It can be, I want to try this. I want to go there. I want to do these things that I haven't been able to do before. It can be social. It can be recreational. It can be employment. It can be just vocational in nature. I'm going to talk about what those Venn diagrams are in a minute. So at this meeting, you want the job seeker to go through that information and brainstorm different situations, different settings, different preferences that the person might have based on what other people know about the person. Sometimes it's a self-employment or maybe a micro business, but most often it's a discussion about different kinds of jobs. And then again, I'll go through that Venn diagram because that's a way to brainstorm ideas that you otherwise wouldn't be able to think about. You want to put all those ideas on the wall, like on a flip chart or something like that, or maybe on a computer screen. You want everybody to brainstorm. these different ideas that they can think about for that particular person. And then you ultimately, towards the end of the meeting, want to summarize those ideas along with ideas of specific businesses that you might want to consider on this person's behalf. After the meeting, you want to kind of debrief with the job seeker. What are their personal contacts and professional contacts? You want to follow up with to revisit some of these ideas, approach some of those businesses, look at different websites, and start to do some of the research behind some of the ideas that might in fact be generated. And then ultimately, you want to use those Venn diagrams. And I'm going to go through it quick because I think I'm running out of time here. So here's Jeff again. You saw all these things about Jeff in the other slide. So now you want to use these Venn diagrams to say, what would we do if Jeff was interested in sports and working out, wants a social environment and wants to be a people kind of job where he might be able to do some cleaning or assembly of some sort. And so the idea is, what might be a good option for something like that? And what's really neat about these is you can come up with all kinds of combinations of this information from the positive personal profile. He was also interested in music and theater. He was interested in customer service, and he was interested in collating and organizing materials. So in this one, what did you come up with? It could be like a health club or a gym, maybe a sporting goods store, something like that. And for this one, he might want to get involved with the local theater or some sort of the movie theater, something like that. And so these ideas can be thrown out based on putting this kind of information into a Venn diagram. So for Jeff, it turned out that somebody knew somebody at this health club called Equinox. So they provided an access to that place for Jeff. They shared what Jeff could really do well. And they learned that in the mornings, they didn't have enough staff to deal with the morning rush. And so he was able to restock towels, sanitize the mats so they could get one class out and another class in quicker, so that the customers didn't have to miss as much work when they came in to go to some of these classes in the mornings. So I'm going to go through this super quick because I think I ran out of time, but key point, most jobs are never on the internet. Most jobs are hidden. They never are posted. So if 80% or to 100% of the jobs are never announced, how do you get to know about it? It's through networking. It's identifying those contacts. So what we're really saying is, whoever somebody is, person with disability or not, whoever the family members are, they know people. They have colleagues, they have friends, they have other people that they know, they have employers, and so they can give you names, they can help you identify opportunities that might be in their best interests. But what's most important and most powerful about it is not only do you know those individuals, but the people that you know also know other people. And so if you look at it that, for just one person who is interested in a job, there can be, if you count all those dots on the left-hand side, there can be as many as 8 opportunities for a specific job at a health club or at a dinner theater or at a community theater or at a movie theater. All of these ideas that you had about a job can have actual specific individuals identified with them. So ultimately, what we say is work your networks. And so the second resource that I'm sending you is a list of all the different kinds of industries, so that a person with a disability who brings all of these people together for a meeting can hand out this networking sheet, and they can say, who do you know? And then when they list all of those, now you have 10, 20, 30, 40 different contacts that you can tap into to help somebody achieve the job. Okay. Well, so I went slightly over, but hopefully you found that to be of benefit. And I'm certainly willing to stick around if anybody wants to discuss this further or if they have any questions.
Well, thank you, Dale. I'll let Rose talk in just a minute, but I just really wanted to thank you. It was interesting going through, being able to talk back and forth the different areas that Hunter has worked on, the different things that have helped, and then, you know, him realizing what else he could do.
Yep,
So do you have anything?
there's a lot more that I need to do and get done
Why do you want to do more?
because life is continuing and is ever expanding. There's a grand expanse of experiences and more.
True. Rose.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Dale, wow, that was amazing. I'm super excited to be able to push this out. Seems like some pretty good work that we're hearing people are starting to work on here in Southwest Wisconsin, and myself and a few coworkers actually have as a priority. So really thank you and
Good.
appreciate that. But speaking of networking and building those connections, I just wanted to thank, we had some sponsors that were able to make tonight possible. So I just want to go through the list of those real quick and make sure that they know they're still networking with us and we're still working with them here, building their connections at Southwest Wisconsin. That would be the Attainment Company, the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities, CISA 3, My Choice Wisconsin, Tree Group, University of Whitewater, UW Fueling Philanthropy Students, Family Voices of Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Integrated Transition Planning Project, ACT Achieving Collaborative Treatment, Community First Bank, GT Independence, Unified Therapy Services out of Dubuque, Iowa, WISPAC, Opportunity Center, Cafe Hope, Gunderson Boscobel Area Hospitals and Clinics, and last, Southwest Opportunity Center of Lancaster. I want to thank all of them for believing in all of this. I know that most of those groups are ready to have these conversations about how they can have employees or help families and the loved ones with lived experience. So really want to thank them, Dale and Tim, you at Southern Regional Center. Boy, we couldn't get this work going without you guys.
That's a heck of a network you've got there.
Yeah, so that'd be one of Rose's strengths, that she neglected to mention, is bringing people together, building networks and helping them form a vision around a common goal.
Good.
All right,
Excellent.
Rose or Darla, any questions, or Hunter? Any questions for Dale based on that?
No, I got nothing off the top of my head.
I guess, Dale, I'm going to ask you a real brief question. We are looking forward to starting some of this transition work at through our CISA 3 and the documents and everything you're going to share. Will we be able to freely use those to help build, not only if we get students that come to us, but will we be able to freely share them with educators in the area who are transition coaches?
Yes. The answer is yes. I mean, that we want to get this information out there. We believe in it. We think that when people implement these sort of things and tap into these networks and call these meetings on behalf of specific job seekers, it works. And so anything you can do to help get that out there, we're all for it.
Great, thank you. Darla, it looks like you unmuted. Did you want to ask a question?
Oh, I was just gonna say that the charts really summed everything up nicely, so it was a very good presentation.
And Dale, I know that I keep muting you. We keep getting some sort of feedback and I'm not sure where it's from. So I'm just trying to mute and unmute different people to see if we can get it controlled. I did have a question from somebody that I had talked to about your presentation. And in some of the rural communities, she's like, well, what do you do when your circle is really small? Like maybe because of your child's disability or whatever, you haven't had a chance to go out, or you're not the most sociable couple in the first place, So do you have suggestions for people who's like, that social network may be really small, about how they can make the most of it?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, because you're saying network, but you got to build, it's a chicken and an egg, right? You got to start somewhere. But especially in rural areas, there may not be a lot of employers there, but people make money in a lot of different ways. And so what I find is that the networking has to be characteristic of the community in which they live. And so like up north in northern Wisconsin, you don't have the same amount of employers, but there's a lot of people still making money and doing jobs out there. Sometimes it's more self-employment. Sometimes it's like agriculture. We have a huge agricultural economy, but we don't see a lot of people with disabilities necessarily working in agriculture. Why is that? I think it's lack of networks. But so that would be part of my answer is, don't think about it just in terms of networking with employers. Think about just networking with individuals and seeing where there might be some common interests. And again, you don't always have to go right to the job. It can be work experiences. So who needs work done? And so a lot of times somebody needs help with something. And then you find out they did a nice job with that. So then a second person says, well, I could use some help with that. And so ultimately you could build your own little business and it could all just start with some initial kinds of work experiences. And then that chart started with 2 people. So that would be something I would say, somebody who says, I don't have a big network. Well, what is your network? And the chances are it's going to end up being bigger than they think. Because again, it's not just who they know, it's who they know that knows somebody. And so that would be, I'd say, it's just don't get discouraged by it. But if you got 2 people, then 2 people can become 4.
4 can become 8, 8 can become 16.
Any other final questions or comments before we close out tonight?
Not
All
for
right,
myself.
Oh, what's that, Rose?
I was just gonna say not for myself, but just
All right.
really good information.
Yeah, I told you, right? Well, Dale, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you when you're back around this area. And this was really good information. I can't wait to get this posted and, like Rose said, push it out, because this is a message that
Needs to be spread.
thank you, Hunter. And it's not being spread a lot in the circles that I run in. So thank you so very much for bringing this perspective. I really appreciate it. All right. Thank you all very much for listening. I'm going to stop the recording and do other goodbyes.
Yay.